Let me say a special good morning to those of you listening to Classic Radio 105.5, 105.9. Good morning to you. Those of you viewing GBN TV, whether it's Channel 7, Channel 11, Channel 20, our social media audience, those of you via our Facebook page, YouTube channels, good morning. Those of you via GBN's webpage, that's gbn.gd. Good morning to you. Welcome to another edition of To The Point, today being Wednesday the 31st. And usually on Wednesdays, we do entertain various departments relating to government. And representing is it the NOC, right?
Yes, a subcommittee of the NOC.
Subcommittee of the NOC. We have Dr. Wendy Grenade with us this morning. Dr. Wendy Grenade, good morning and welcome to the point this morning. How are you this morning?
Good morning and thanks for having me, and good morning to your listeners and viewers.
All right. Now, for the benefit for our listeners out there, some may know you. I have just gotten to know you a wee bit this morning. Tell us something about Dr. Wendy Grenade. And just the simplest of boy that you could come up with. Simplest. If it may be long, don't get into it. But if you could say just a couple lines, hey, who was Wendy Grenade?
I'm a Grenadian woman.
For true.
I'm from Marion, St. George. Mm-hmm. And I'm a political scientist.
All right.
I was out of Grenada for the last 21 years. I'm back home now. I'm a professor at SGU.
All right.
And I'm passionate about Grenada and the Caribbean.
All right. As simple as that, and folks would, of course, understand the level of our conversation we had this morning. This morning, our conversation, you being part of the subcommittee of the NOC this morning, we're talking independence this morning. Mm-hmm. And to kick the conversation off this morning, if I'm had to ask you, what is independence? For the regular Grenadians out there who always say, oh, it's Independence Day and Independence, we are celebrating our independence. Now folks are saying we're celebrating our 50th anniversary of independence and the Golden Jubilee, everything that they would say in between. Mm-hmm. If I have to ask you, what is independence?
Well, if I'm to answer your question and you ask me one word that could capture what the essence of independence is,
yes,
I would say it's about freedom. Mm-hmm. And the quest for freedom, the search for freedom. And I like to start to discuss the whole notion of independence historically. So if we say we were emancipated and we're searching for freedom, there are certain critical junctures in our historical evolution where Grenadians were trying to unshackle from unfreedoms, mm-hmm. from the unfreedom of poverty, from the unfreedom of illiteracy, from the unfreedom of ill health, and so forth and so on. So you come through, we had 1951 and the role that Eric Gary played. Come through, we had the 1970s, we had the Grenada Revolution. And it was about moments where we were searching for greater levels of freedom. Okay. Now, 1974, the 7th of February, that becomes very important in that long search for freedom. But independence, we have to look at it, I believe, in a nuanced way. We have to think about nationhood and statehood. Mm-hmm. So if we think about because on February 7th, 1974, we did not begin our journey as Grenadians.
Towards independence.
Right. There was a nation that existed before a sovereign state was established on the 7th of February, 1974. Mm-hmm. So who were we? And what did we bring to the moment of political independence in 1974? All right. We had come from a tradition of overcoming. We had come from political turmoil, from conflict, but from resilience building. So when we got to 1974, it was a nation and our team, one people, one journey, one future, is something that we have to unpack. Because even as we were a collective with different parts. We had different classes, different ethnic groups, yeah? Mm-hmm. Different religions. So how then, when we got to 74, who were we? And what did the nation bring to the state? So to take the whole notion of independence in terms of statehood, what did we gain in 1974? Yeah. Of course, we gained the Constitution. But beyond that, we became a member of the international community. And I heard Sister Gloria Payne Banfield say recently, if Grenada was not independence, Kirani James could not have won a gold medal. He would have had to run as a British subject. We became a member of the international community. We were able to sign treaties. Yeah. We were able to engage in partnerships. We were able to participate in international affairs. That becomes important because of the word sovereignty.
Yes.
Now, some would argue, how could you be independent when you are so economically dependent? And that is a valid question that people ask from time to time, but I want to answer it in this way. There is no country in the world, to my knowledge, that is economically independent. When you look at the relationship between the United States and China, for example, what they have is what scholars refer to as a complex interdependence. And what does that mean? Their trade ties and financial flows, their strategic interests
with each other. Yes.
So at the end of the day, they would not go to war with each other because they are so intertwined and so interdependent. What we in the developing world, we have a complex dependence.
Yes.
In terms of our economic, and that is historical. Now, does that mean we are not independent? We are independent, but we are independent in a particular context where there is unequal relations, uneven development, unfair trade. So we are exercising our sovereignty in a particular context. If we know how to maneuver, if we know how to leverage, for example, through regional arrangements, through global partnerships and so forth, we maximize our sovereignty better. Yeah. So when I think about independence, I see the glass as half full, not as half empty, because we have, in fact, arrested and addressed many of the issues of the unfreedoms, although we have a lot of unfinished business to do in terms of poverty and gender injustices and so forth and so on, the feminization of poverty and all of that. We have some unfinished business. But when we think of the state and the nation, culturally, what did we get at independence? We also got symbols. We got a flag. We got... Look, when we think about Grenada this week and going into next week, there is something
that we have gotten.
We got the symbols, and how do we bring meaning to these symbols? What does being Grenadian mean? And I think that is where we have to unravel a lot of the discourse around independence. What does it mean to be Grenadian as nation? What does it mean to be Grenadian as state?
All right.
Yeah.
If I could tickle your fancy as who are we before independence?
We were people that have come from a tradition where we had resistance to oppression, where we had to overcome, where we had to build resilience. There was something about us, whether we look at Federal Rebellion or whether we come straight to the 1950s, whether we go before that to the indigenous peoples and how they fought for their own freedom. There was something about us. And George Brizan's book, Island of Conflict, captures a part of it. We came through a series of conflicts. But beyond that, we had some traditions and some norms, and they were passed down. A village was raising a child, as I said recently, even as the flag was hoisted in darkness. There was something about a sense of community, and that is what nationhood does. It's a people who believe in a homeland, who share certain traditions. Nobody could cook aldong like we could cook aldong. No. Nobody could say ayo like we could say ayo. Yeah. There's a linguistic kind of richness that we share. So our heritage, our culture, our identity, there is something distinctly Grenadian, even as it is wrapped up in a Caribbeanness, even as it is wrapped up in a larger Africanness. There is something distinctly Grenadian that we must be proud of.
I agree with you on that. Totally. My next question leads to this. Now you have spoken about, what is independence, and you sort of give a broad scale of what is independence. If a regular person is to ask you this question now, are we independent in Grenada?
I would say yes, we are. Yes, we are independent. And why? Because we could participate in international affairs. Because we could sign treaties. And if we think about independence in terms of how we engage the world, how we engage each other and how we engage the world, I would say we are independent. But we are independent in an interdependent world. We are, and Gloria Payne Banfield said it last week. She said if we were not independent, we couldn't have a revolution. Who would they overthrow? The British? You understand? So the fact is, we are independent because we enjoy being part of the international community. That's one dimension of it.
Yes.
Now, if we look at independence in a more nuanced way, and we say, if independence is about freedom, it's about autonomy, how independent are we? And this is where we have to start asking hard questions about ourselves and our self-identity. We have to ask hard questions about our political economy and what we produce. And if we want to, in fact, be truly independent, we have to ask questions about our justice systems and why is it that we're still part of the Privy Council. So I am not claiming that we have independence is some finished product, some end. It's about how do you continue that quest for freedom? How do you continue to break down barriers? Even as the 7th February 1974 was a pivotal moment.
It was a start.
It was a continuation of the search for freedom.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, we can say we are independent in terms of international affairs. But that doesn't mean that we have the power that we need. Being independent doesn't mean that you're all-powerful. You're independent in a world of great powers. Yeah? So it means, in fact, that your sovereignty is exercised in a compromised way. Your sovereignty is compromised because of unequal power. That's one dimension of it.
Yeah.
When we think about internal sovereignty, in terms of how we govern ourselves, if you ask me, what does it mean to be independent in a parliamentary democracy, with constitutionality and all of that? I would say yes, we have autonomy to govern ourselves, to exercise internal sovereignty. And you may ask, where then does sovereignty lie? Are people empowered? Are they part of their governance? What does it mean to be free in a country where you have partisan politics exercised as it is? What does it mean to be independent? And I think we have to think about independence in several ways, in terms of our domestic politics and what it means in terms of sovereignty and citizen sovereignty, and what it means for us to exercise our freedom. We have to think about independence in terms of how we engage the world and what it means to be part of the international community. And we have to then make sense of nation and state and bring it together for a fuller understanding of who we are.
All right. Some folks would say that we still pledge allegiance to Her Majesty or His Majesty. Does that signify that we are still not independent in some way or the other?
It's not that we're not independent, but our independence is compromised because we have unfinished business. We have not completed the process. We're still a member of the Privy Council. We still pledge allegiance. And I think these are some of the things that we have to work through. When we think about one people, one journey, one future, as we look to the future, we have to ask, who are we? How do we define ourselves? How do we present ourselves to the world? And when we ask these questions, then we say, do we pledge allegiance to whom? What does that mean for our national pride, for our nationhood?
Yeah.
And I think these are some of the things, some of the unfinished business that we have to continue to work through as we go forward.
All right. How could that be achieved in some way or the other?
Oh, yes, it can. There are other countries in the Caribbean, in the world, indeed. Barbados recently became a republic and so forth and so on. There are different ways that we could break from. We have not fully broken from our colonial shackles. And if we think mentally as well, if you ask me psychologically how free we are, the shackles may have left us physically.
Yeah.
But we have a lot of work to do on black identity, self-love. There's a lot that we need to do to claim the fullness of our Grenadianness. And then we would be really on a path to independence in a meaningful way.
I'm trying to get the concept when you present the shackles and trying to break free. What do you mean by that?
Well, when you think historically where we've come from, and just think back to the existence that your great-grandparents would have had.
Yes.
Right? And their great-grandparents would have had. If we're thinking about what freedom is, and physically we know the Middle Passage and what it meant. We understand plantation slavery. And there's a lot of discussion now about reparations and repair, and we could speak about that later on. So we understand that noble Africans were enslaved.
Yes.
We understand indentured because we don't speak about the Indian community here a lot, and I think we need to speak a lot more about them. But when the shackles physically left our ancestors, that does not mean that the mind became free. Education, and we could speak about education because the type of education we got was an education from the colonials that was intentionally designed to keep us shackled. So we have, and the revolution started the process of sort of decolonizing the education. We have to continue that process. So understand, and I'm happy for Dr. Nicole Philip Dow's book on Grenadian history. I'm happy for Dr. Angus Martin's book on the A to Z of Grenadian heritage, because what it means, we are starting a conversation about who we are. And that will be part of the process of breaking the mental shackles. We have to claim who we are.
Yeah, agree. Dr. Wendy Grenada does this morning here on To The Point. We drew for a break. Let's take a break. We come back with much more. Folks, stay with us here on To The Point. Don't touch your dial.
Nothing like starting a new year with better news than the old one. From the start of 2024, the NLA has much news to share. Get this, the 2X dropped promo that players have been enjoying is extended to January 31st, 2024. Yes, Grenada, it's goodbye for a longer while 2X. With no 2X balls and fewer free play balls, players, your chances of multiplying your winnings 5 times more with Multi-X added to Playway will continue to grow. Don't miss out. For every draw, ask for Playway with Multi-X. It's a great time to value your dreams, win your way, and multiply your winnings in the NLA's 2X dropped promotion. Must be 18 years and older to play. NLA, making your dreams come true.
The Planning and Development Authority of Grenada, PDA, is enforcing regulations to curb illegal, disorderly, and unauthorized development in several locations throughout the state of Grenada. The authority is concerned that structures mainly associated with vending are negatively impacting the environment, has undesirable public health and sanitation consequences, present obstructions to vehicle and pedestrian traffic, can become projectiles during adverse weather conditions, and generally affect the aesthetics of the nation. The PDA will work along with stakeholder ministries and institutions to effect the demolition, removal, and disposal of structures which fall in the category of illegal and disorderly development, commencing January 2024. In this regard, persons who vend in or occupy such illegal structures are advised to secure their personal belongings and have the structures removed ahead of the planned PDA demolition operations. These actions of the PDA have become necessary to safeguard and protect public health and the environment, ensure the safety and well-being of all citizens and visitors, discourage any future disorderly construction, and encourage compliance to regulations pertaining to physical development in the state of Grenada. This is a message from the Planning and Development Authority of Grenada.
Welcome back, listeners. Welcome back, viewers. It's To The Point for today, Wednesday, the 31st. And with me this morning, Dr. Wendy Grenada. And we're talking Grenada's independence this morning. We started our conversation with my first question. So what is independence? We followed up with, of course, are we really independent? My next question to you, Dr. Wendy Grenada, welcome back. I should actually say welcome back inside this segment. What would you say make us proud to be Grenadian and proud to be an independent nation, I would say also? What would make us proud to do that?
You know, if I ask a little 10-year-old child, how do you feel to be Grenadian? Mm-hmm. I have a little nephew, he's 9. And he really, we were doing these public education sessions and so on. He said to me, Auntie Wendy, I hope you're all coming to St. Andrew, you know. He has a thing about St. Andrew, where he lives.
Okay.
He's proud. They were cleaning up, and he called, he said, you know, we're cleaning up. He sent videos. And I'm saying that to say, if we take the politics aside and we ask, what makes us proud to be Grenadian? For me, if you ask me that, we share a kind of culture that make us really, I don't want to say unique, but our culture is rich. We have a sense of our Grenadian selves collectively that is spicy. There's a lot to be proud of when we look at this country and where we've come from and where we are. I remember my 4 grandparents going to Calviny Estate with cutlass and crook stick in hand. I watch now. There's a lot of pockets of poverty that we have to fix. But we should be proud that we have come from a tradition of overcoming. We should be proud that we have an instinct to bounce back. When we think of post-revolutionary Grenada and the crises that we've gone through, whether it's Hurricane Ivan and Emily, whether it's COVID-19, Grenada becomes a very good case study of how a small island developing state would bounce back, would recover. And I think when we have crises is when we see the best of our collective selves, when we are pushed against a wall, whether the morning after Hurricane Ivan, and you got up and you looked around, something in your Grenadianness said to you, there is a sense of community, and I have to help my neighbor. There's a lot that we could be proud of, and I think we spend so much time speaking about what doesn't work. If we had to look at the things that work and the things that make us Grenadian and the fact that when we look back at where we and look at where we are now, we must say, my God, something happened in this country that we should be proud of. Education helped to break the cycle of poverty for many, and we have opportunities that we never had before. That does not mean that there isn't unfinished business, where there are too many Grenadians that would wake up in the morning and feel hopeless. But at the same time, we must be proud that when we look ahead, when we look at the talent, I went to the Unleash conference that they had last year, and I saw Grenadian talent. I saw Grenadian creativity. I saw innovation. I felt hopeful in a younger generation that would take Grenada further than we are now. So there's a lot to be proud of. We are a people that we could stand tall, even as we are small in size. I think we could stand tall in the world because our size cannot limit our imagination, and that is something we must be proud of. When we were producing cocoa, nutmeg, and banana, we could say, okay, we have so much land mass and we can't produce more. When we are into the creative industries, when we are thinking about artificial intelligence, we must be able to say the Grenadian worker of tomorrow is a worker that can have opportunities to use his or her imagination. And that is boundless. You can't put a territorial boundaries around our minds. And this is something we must be proud of. When we think of the potential in the green and the blue and the orange economies, we must see hope. We must see opportunities and possibilities despite our contradictions, because there are many contradictions. Yes? So I think there's a lot to be proud of. Our language is a gift to the world. Our food, our cuisine, the way we are, or the beauty of this place. I lived overseas for 21 years, and prior to that 4 years, lived overseas most of my adult life. And every time I come back home, I say, but Grenada, nice way. And I think it's in the diaspora when we are out there. And then we come back, we realize, but this place nice.
When have I left?
So when we're ready to knock it, we have to still understand that there's something in our hand that we could work with. There's something, it's a precious piece of real estate.
Yes. Let me ask you another question. Do you think Grenadians understand the importance of independence?
Well, I wouldn't want to generalize and say we don't understand the importance. I think on the one hand, the symbols mean something. I was in St. George's yesterday. People were buying T-shirts because there's a part of us that we are proud of the symbols. Yeah?
Yeah.
So for many, independence is about how you could cook a nice oil down, how you could dance a nice dance, play a nice job, go to a nice show, wear a nice t-shirt and your Grenadian.
Yeah.
For others, we ask, what does this all mean?
That's what my question is going to.
Yeah, what does this all mean? And if we had to think about meaningful independence, we have to ask, what type of society do we want? And what type of society do we have? And what type of society do we deserve? And when we ask these kinds of questions, we say, you know what? There's a lot more that we must do. Because at the end of the day, when we think about some of the challenges that bedevil us now, like crime, we have to ask, for an independent people, what then does it mean for how we order our society? How should we order our society? What should be some of the norms and the mores? Outside of legislating, what should the culture be? And some people argue that when we didn't have cars in every driveway and when we were in the river washing and so forth, our value system was different. So I think a big part of what we must do going forward is to ask ourselves, what does it mean to be human? If we think about our Grenadianness in terms of our equal humanity, and I see you and you see me, not by what we do, not by our titles, but by the essence of who we are, made in God's image as one. If we start from there, it would become difficult for us to just watch you and shoot you down. What then do we do? What becomes the role of civil society? The churches and other religious organizations, the homes, the schools. If we are thinking about building a nation, it must be a whole of society approach, to use that cliche, where we come together as a collective and different groups play their individual. When I was at the Anglican high school, you had guides, you had rangers, you had cadets, you had groups, you had 4-H, you had the Red Cross in the primary schools. You had groups that taught you about civics and taught you what it meant to be a good neighbor. And I think somewhere along the line, even as we are politically independent and we could sign treaties and we could wave our flag, somewhere along the line, the essence of who we are started to unravel.
Yeah.
And that is where we have to start. A society must again understand the essence of community, the sense of community, the sense of identity. And these are some of the things that when we think about one people, one journey, one future, we have to think, what does it mean going forward with transnational crime globally? Grenada is part of a larger global community. How do we deal with things like that? How do we deal with minds of people? If we are thinking independence and we asking ourselves, are we free mentally? We have a long, long way to go to capture that kind of citizen that would ensure we have the society that we deserve.
Do you think Grenada has come a long way from post-independence to now?
Well, I would look at that in different dimensions. Politically, I think we are damaged in terms of we are very politically divided in Grenada. Yeah? So, and that is a continuum. We've always had a political divide in Grenada, and that is something we have to work on if we want a more healthy democracy. And that will take another program. We've come a long way in terms of the material circumstances have changed for some. I can't say for the majority, but the material circumstances have changed. People are having access to material things. That doesn't mean that the quality of life would have improved. We are not, in terms of agriculture and feeding ourselves. When we think, my grandmother lived to be 103. And you know why she lived to be 103? How she ate. The fish, the dasheen, the tanya. Now we're running back to try to eat ground food because dietitians are telling us that you don't want the processed food and so forth. So when your mommy would give you a yam and dasheen, you say that's poor people food.
Yeah,
but no, you don't want that. I used to cry. They used to beat me to eat fig. Now I go in and cut down fig every minute and eat. So in terms of have we progressed? our material circumstances, we may be living in bigger houses and driving cars. But at the end of the day, does that translate sufficiently to a better quality of life? Are we experiencing more meaningful living? Are we happier? Are we freer in terms of how we think about ourselves? And I think we have a lot of work to do to understand that life is not just about material things, and that we have to understand too that people matter more than things. Something my daddy always says. People matter more than things. And we cannot let the society regress to the point where things matter more than people.
Yeah.
And that is a dangerous slope that we have to pull back from.
Interesting, your contribution to that. We drew for a break again. Let's take it. We're coming back with much more, folks, here on To The Point this morning. Of course, I'm your host, GT, and with me this morning, my guest, Dr. Wendy will be coming back. Interesting conversation, folks. Don't forget, you also have the opportunity to chime in with us this morning. 435-2041. You may have a question or two relates to independence. You can ask Dr. Wendy Grenade. Of course, if she can answer, she will. We'll be right back after the break. Stay with us.
Real Value IGA Supermarket has...
Grenada, our beautiful pure island, is turning 50. And what better way to celebrate than with an evening that captures our heart, our spirit, our journey. Welcome to Up From Here, an experience of our past, present, and future. Join us at the National Cricket Stadium on Friday, February 2nd, as we revel in a spectacular showcase of Grenadian talent from our very own shores and from across the seas. Our artists are coming home to celebrate with us. Experience the rhythms that rocked our past and melodies that map our future. Live bands, sensational artists, dynamic dancers, all on one stage. And the best part, it's absolutely free. Gates open at 7 p.m. Showtime 8 p.m. Come early. Bring your family. Bring your friends. Let's fill the stadium with our pride, our joy, our unity. 50 years of music, talent, and creativity. This is our moment, Grenada. Let's celebrate. It's only Up From Here together. Stay connected to our social media pages for updates at Grenada Turns 50.
Are you ready to have some fun? Are you ready to rep in your national colors? Well, something big is coming to the Monrouge playing field on Saturday, February 3rd, as Lunis Park and Electrify presents their first ever Colors Family Fun Day. At the Monrouge playing field in Grand Dance, it's a day filled with fun and excitement for the entire family. Start time 2 p.m. till 8 p.m. Come enjoy go-kart ride, horseback riding, races, and traditional games. Also, you get free face painting and bouncy castle. Check out the eating competition and more. Prizes for the biggest t-shirt crew and the most creative independence outfits. And that's not all. There will be live performances by dancers, singers, top artists, Boise, Jab King, Moody J, Lunis Park, Electrify, and much more. Kids, you pay only 10. Adults, you pay 15. So get your outfits, get your tees, and come on down at the Monrouge playing field on Saturday, February 3rd for the first ever Colors Family Fun Day.
Grenada, come and enjoy 3 nights of celebration and consecration as the Lateran Revival Center celebrates Grenada's Jubilee anniversary. Let's come together to give God thanks for the past 50 years. Join us from January 31st to February 2nd at the Gateway Conference Center in Point Salines. Special guest, Bishop Griffin Daniel from Dominica, bringing a powerful message to pure Grenada. Don't miss this special celebration for Grenada's Jubilee Independence Anniversary. Come and experience spiritual growth, unity, and gratitude. Hosted by the Lateran Revival Center, where faith comes alive.
I love my Grenada, my homeland forever. Sing the chorus loud, tell them about Grenada.
get ready to mark a historic milestone. It's the 50th anniversary of Independence Gala Cocktail and Dance, Saturday, 3rd February 2024 at the Crown Ballroom Radisson, starting at 7 p.m. for the all-inclusive cost of $500. All proceeds go towards the restoration of Government House. Secure your tickets now and be a part of history. Be there at the Radisson on February 3rd, 2024, hosted by Governor General Dame Cecile Lagranade.
Tickets available at Grenadian Optical, Melville Street and Grand Anse, the 50th Anniversary Independence Committee Secretariat on the Carenage, and online at gotofet.com.
Welcome back, listeners. Welcome back, viewers. Let me say good morning to those of you via our social media platform, Facebook page, YouTube channels. Good morning, and thanks for being with us this morning. Dr. Wendy Grenade, welcome back. Let's get into some of the activities that are coming up. I know there's a lot of activities that has gone already, and there's more to come. Tell us about some of these activities that folks should probably look forward to.
Well, thanks for giving me this opportunity to do so. We're having, and I must say, I'm the chair of the Subcommittee on History, Heritage, Identity and Documentation, which is a subcommittee of the National Organising Committee. And we have a mandate to ensure that we engage in, look at heritage sites, documentation, thinking through an archives, but more so public education. So we're having a series of town hall meetings. The first would be in GBSS this afternoon at 6:30, this evening actually at 6:30. And the next would be in Grenville at Deluxe Cinema tomorrow, the 1st of February at 6:30. The theme would be one people, one journey, one future, voices from within. And what we are hoping to do is to allow Grenadians to speak about Grenada. Yeah. We want to have what I am calling an intergenerational dialogue, where we come and we discuss what does independence mean, what were some of our best moments, and more so, what do we see in the future? What kind of Grenada we want going forward. So we'll be going to other parishes after the 7th. But we're beginning with GBSS this afternoon. We're inviting everybody who can make it to come out, and at the Deluxe Cinema in Grenville tomorrow at 6:30. Yeah. We'll also be having a virtual town hall meeting with the same theme, one people, one journey, one future, voices from the diaspora. And Mrs. Akima Paul Lambert has agreed to moderate that for us. It will be virtual, and we would announce the date and when that is happening in due course. We're also having some public lecture series on the same theme, where someone would, from their perspective, dissect and unpack the theme. The first public lecture series, public lecture would be done by Mr. Ali Gill, and it would be on February 22nd at St. Patrick Anglican School. We'll be having others. Akima Paul would do one. Dr. Candy Mitchell Hall would do one. Dr. Kellan Bobai would do one. So for the entire year, we'll be having public lecture series around the theme. Dr. Oliver Benoit would be here, I think, tomorrow morning, and he would speak about what's happening in terms of culture and heritage. He's having an exhibition at the St. Paul's Community Center from February, and we're encouraging people to participate. We also have a mobile museum that is going around in schools, and there's a lot that we're doing. A magazine would come out in terms of the history of Grenada. So our subcommittee is really working. I want to thank all the members of the subcommittee for the hard work that they've been doing to really sensitize Grenadians as to what does independence mean and how we should be going forward.
Oh, great. In this segment, folks, we invite you, our listeners and viewers, if you do have a question or two that you would like to ask Dr. Grenade, feel free to do so. Let's entertain our first caller. Caller, good morning.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Telesford. Greetings, how are you? And good morning to your guest, Miss Grenade.
Good morning to you, sir.
I would like to establish, first of all, before I before I make the two questions or ask the two questions. None of us in this here world can change the past. Let us get that straight. The past has been done. But what we all can do, whether it be individually or collectively, is influence the consequences of the past. And I want to start on this premise. I heard Dr. Grenade explain a lot of things. They're rather interesting. But I want to focus on all that was said about independence, whether it was independence based on self-sustainability or independence through as emancipation, in other words, political independence. I have a problem, and the country is getting to understand that there is a problem. I want to refer to the legitimacy of this independence. I want to repeat that. The validity of this independence. There may be something that Dr. Grenade knows that I've been seeking to find out. What document can Dr. Grenade produce or direct me to find that would give legitimacy? I know we're in the UN, we're in the OAS, we're in the World Bank, we sign treaties. What gives us this legal authority as a country to do that? I refer to the Constitution Act, for instance. I refer to the Independence Act. Who signed them? Where are they? Where can we find them? Finally, I do not know, as a link up to the first question, I do not know if the doctor knows of a document that is proposed, a motion to be set before the Houses, a special joint sitting of the Houses on Tuesday the 6th, where they intend to, excuse me, as they say, approve a motion which was presented to the House of Commons in the United Kingdom on the 11th of December 1973 and was presented, I'm quoting from what's written on the document published, on the 26th of November, no year in this case, in this house, whichever house that is, and they propose to approve it. One more thing about that document, which took effect on the 7th of January 1974. I repeat, this document has to do with the termination of the associated state with the United Kingdom. Question here on this one. Why is it after 50 years, wrong, we're now going to approve that document? And what does that mean to us? Why is it we're not concentrating on the Constitution? Because they both came together in 1974. The preface to the Imperial Order in Council of the Queen's Most Excellent Majesty, signed by Elizabeth Regina on the 19th of December 1973 in Buckingham Palace, stipulates crystal clear that the Termination Act, which was approved, ends at the moment the Constitution begins. In other words, both cannot function together. And if we're going to approve it in our parliament today, under what conditions were we living over the past 50 years? Do you see any connection with the previous question of legitimacy in this action? I trust that my question is understood. Is it? May I confirm before I leave?
Dr. Grenade, he's asking if his questions are understood.
Well, the first question in terms of legitimacy and independence, but I didn't quite get where he was going with the second part of the question.
All right.
Oh, you didn't get it? Well, I hope to be in one of those town hall meetings and so on, so we can put it forward that the people can get answers to it. The legitimacy is the problem. Whatever comments you may have, I'm happy that you didn't understand my question. That means I don't speak the English language sufficiently clear. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Good morning, sir. All right. You want to respond to his first question?
Yes, thank you, caller. What I would say, and this is a democracy, and every Grenadian has a right to a perspective. Yeah. What I would say, caller, with respect to legitimacy of our independence, sovereignty. The word sovereignty has territoriality, autonomy, and legitimacy. When Grenada became independent on the 7th of February 1974, it became a legal personality. Somebody could sue this country. That's why the Taiwanese did what they did when we switched allegiance to China. You remember that?
Yes.
Because this country, on the basis of its sovereignty, is a legal personality. That's why we could sign a treaty. When you think about Palestine, or you think about Taiwan, or you think about Montserrat, Montserrat is a member of CARICOM. But we usually say we have 14 votes in the international system. You know why? Because Montserrat cannot vote. Why can't Montserrat vote? Montserrat is a British subject. Grenada's independence meant, in fact, that we gained legitimacy in the international community. That is why, as Gloria Payne Banfield said, Kirani James could run under a flag called Grenada. So that's how I would answer you. We are an independent state, and we are a legal personality in terms of international relations. And there is no dispute about that. Because if it was in dispute, we could not be a member of the international community. We would have to be an observer in the OAS and the UN and so forth and so on. So there is no dispute whether we are in fact independent from a political science perspective, from an international relations perspective.
Okay. Let's entertain another caller. Caller, good morning. You're welcome.
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Host and guest. Some of the issues that are raised around independence are very profound, and sometimes the limited time that are allowed by the public to vent or to exchange are not sufficient. That have been said. I think because even the last words from both the caller and the post could be further stretched. For instance, both in support of her and him. Because, for instance, we still follow, by and large, everything British. We describe ourselves in certain circles as Anglo-Grenadian. Or like in Trinidad, Afro, well, the different ethnic, like Indo, patterning ourselves as how they do in Africa, Franco, and British, whatever. So I'm saying that all the concepts we use are still those people's concepts, including the language. Julius Nyerere, recognizing that when Tanzania became independent, sought to do one outstanding thing, is to have a unifying language, and then adopted Kiswahili, so all the people could communicate. We don't all communicate together here. We despise one another by saying you're not speaking the king's or the queen's English previously. And so we still also have to get validity of our marriage to the crown. I mean, all of these things, unless we break away from these things, we are still in the process of becoming independent. And also, the main identity of the nation. Trump and others are trying to restore the European identity of America, of the United States. What is the identity of Grenada, the substantive identity? Are we Africans? And people say, no. Are we European or whatever? These are things we need to really iron out, because we are confused people when it comes to that. Also, the speaker, the host, talk about intergenerational dialogue. I've been advocating that for years, but who is me, a simple little person with disability and so on, who maybe radical in some ways, or probably you can't even speak fluently. So nobody listens. It's the same thing she mentioned. Another thing, the crime. I've been saying that until I'm overcoming here. You're seeing all the signs of that. So what are we doing? Because we're fooling ourselves and thinking about, we're okay. But we need to have serious. In fact, two things we need in Grenada more than anything else, and I won't go too far. Two things. One, we need to find a therapeutic environment that we could really heal ourselves. And secondly, and this one might help it, we need to create a culture of dialogue. She mentioned a perspective. We don't respect perspective in Grenada. You have to say the same thing. Who decided that was an invasion? That was a rescue mission and not an invasion. We need to answer these kind of questions. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Thank you so much. Anything that the caller mentioned that you want to respond to, Dr. Grenade?
Yes. I want to thank the caller for his comments and very important, because when you speak about who we are and there are a lot of things that we need to do to strengthen our identity, I like to think of us as having because you said, are we African, are we Indian, are we European? Yeah, I see a tapestry of diversity, but we have to look for the common thread in that tapestry. What is that common thread? Despite our ethnicity, despite where we are positioned in terms of the socioeconomic strata, we have to find something common. And when we find that commonality, that is where we understand what the nation is. The nation and the one people, one journey, one future does not at all suggest sameness, does not at all suggest some homogeneous, uniformed thing, but it's about how do we, even as we are diverse, where do we find that unity, that common thread in our diversity? I liked what you spoke about healing, because there's a lot of healing that has to take place, a lot of reconciliation that must take place, and the culture of dialogue. That's why I'm inviting people to come out to these town hall meetings, because we need to speak about ourselves, among ourselves, and this is where we would get clarity as we seek to self-define, ask ourselves, who are we?
All right. We do have another caller. Caller, good morning. You're welcome.
Good morning. Yeah. 2 points. We have to be very careful about AI. We have to be able to think for ourselves. We have to be very skeptical with it. Secondly, we have to go down to the bottom, start from the bottom, because we tend to be building in the sky, and I'm going to explain what I mean by that. We have to go to the man who is cleaning the garbage, the man on the ground. Find out what he thinks. Find out how he understands the society. Get a proper picture from the ground level. Find out what he knows, because we have to remember, the garbage man is not a dotish person. And then we don't go at the top and deal with what the professor is saying, the lawyer is saying, the doctor is saying, and take their views and form the society. Let's start from the bottom, right down in the bottom. Thank you very much.
Thank you, caller. Thank you so much.
Yes, I want to respond because caller, thank you very much, and I share your view. I share your view. I speak about native intelligence. When you speak to a fisherman, a fisherwoman, when you speak to somebody who is a domestic, you get the pulse of the society. You understand how people live and how they feel about the society. And for years I've been saying we cannot sit in ivory towers and understand the society of which we are part. A sort of grassroots understanding. And if we want to move ahead, we need to be inclusive and understand that the bottom-up approach is very important, because it gives us a vantage point to understand how the most marginalized and most vulnerable live and what they feel. What is their livity? And when we get to appreciate that the worker who cleans our environment is an important part of this society, when we understand that a domestic worker is an important part of this society, then we chip away at the class-based notion of who we are. So I welcome what you say, and I believe native intelligence is very, very important. More than it. My grandmother used to say common sense come before book. And I still hold on strongly to that common sense comes before book.
Right. We do have another caller. Caller, good morning. You're welcome.
Yes, good morning. I was agreeing with one of the comments I saw online where I noticed your host talks about Grenadians need to remove the shackles of slavery and the memory of slavery and free ourselves. And I really don't think that mentality and philosophy applies to Grenadians. Grenadians, we are not we're not like the blacks who live in the bigger countries like the U.S. and England, where they are subjected and constantly reminded of slavery and treated with inferiority. We don't really have that on us. So I think we are very proud people who cherish ourselves, and we don't have that inferiority complex of the blacks who live abroad. And there are no shackles of slavery that we need to release. And I think sometimes we need to remember that we are different from black Americans or Americans living in Europe. And we must not import these philosophies and mentalities that they are subjected to onto Grenadians. We don't have shackles of slavery and that we need to remove. We are very proud. We are very progressive in terms of our mentality. And I don't think we have inferiority complex. I don't think we are living in slavery because we are not subjected to that. We are very proud people, black and beautiful, and we are not subjected to racism on our own island. So I think there's a problem there with her mentality of shackles that we need to release on ourselves here in Grenada. Thank you very much.
Thank you, caller. Thank you so much.
Caller, thank you for your perspective, and I respect it. But I differ with your perspective. If you give a little Grenadian child a black dolly, they will cry. There's a lot that, and it's to degrees. I would never say that the extent to which an African American or Caribbean American would experience racism is what we do here. No. It's experienced differently. It's shadism, it's colorism, it's classism. It's different. But we still have a lot of psychological damage. There's still a lot of psychological damage. That doesn't mean that we're not a proud people. You know, there's still a lot of work to be done in breaking the mental shackles. When we ask who we are, we have to understand that we've come from a proud tradition. I do not think racism defines the society. But we have a society where there's a legacy from plantation slavery that is still there lingering, even if it is not as pronounced as what we see in North America. But it is still there, and it is manifested in classism and shadism. And it is a reality in my perspective. I could be wrong, but that's how I see it.
All right. Let's take another caller. Caller, good morning. You're welcome.
Good morning to you, and good morning to your guest. I want to say a special thank you to Dr. Glen for continuing to educate us, and to the committee. They are doing a very hard work.
Caller, 1 sec, please. I'm not sure if it's an issue with your phone, but we are not hearing you clearly for some reason. You sound very muffled. I don't know if you want to call us back also while and get that cleared up. Dr. Glen, there's a question from someone via the WhatsApp asking this question. And they're saying, Dr. Wendy, if we go back to a favorite speech from our Bishop when he spoke about being independent and by writing our own constitution, but the people but the people and not be given to us given to us there, where the movement leading into leading into that way. If you're familiar with the speech, how can we break it down, Constitution, by the bowel of the people? Do you understand what?
Well, I think the person is saying, if I'm understand the question correctly, yes, that we have to look at the Constitution that was given to us and ask ourselves if that is the Constitution that we want to define us. Yeah. And I think in 2016, when we had constitutional reform, I very much was an advocate for constitutional reform to make the Constitution our own. And to the person who's sending in the question, I agree with you. We have to go back to ask, what does it mean to govern yourself? And what is that instrument that we need to have in place to govern ourselves. And I think there's a lot in the Constitution that we need to change if we are really to press ahead with more meaningful independence.
Dr. Grenade, we are strapped for time. It's almost a time for us to wrap this morning. Let's get some closing comments from you. It's been an interesting conversation this morning. I know we can go on and on and on talking about Grenada's independence from your level of understanding of it. We should go on. Any closing comments this morning?
Well, I want to thank you for having me and to thank the callers and the viewers for the questions and comments. And I want to encourage Grenadians to come out to the town hall meeting this afternoon in GBSS and in the Luke Cinema tomorrow evening, where we can speak more about these things. I think the glass is half full. I don't see it as half empty. I think we've come a long way, but there is still some unfinished business that we must, in fact, engage in if we are to experience a more meaningful independence.
All right.
And happy independence to all Grenadians.
And same to you also. Dr. Grenade, thank you so much for being here this morning. And I saw listening and viewing the public, I certainly learned a whole lot from your perspective this morning in terms of the information that you thrown out. And I certainly hope that they would put it into their regular practice, some way of understanding it. Thank you once
very
again.
Much. And happy independence to you too.
Same to you. Hey, folks, that's how we take a wrap for this edition of To The Point for today, Wednesday, the 31st of January. Join us again tomorrow for another edition. Have yourself a good one, folks. That's what we say. Goodbye. Hey, folks, that's how we take a wrap for this edition of To The Point for today.